Hi, I'm Bill Ritchie. I make half-wood presses, and every half-wood press I make a complimentary test plate, an etching or a woodcut, vitreograph, whatever. This is for $49. You can see it there coming out of the box. A special shipping box for international shipment. I did this printing demonstration and test in front of a small group of people, showing the 49 and an etching plate, my test plate, that shows Daniel Smith. And they're watching a 1977 vintage video of Daniel when he was just starting his company. That day I printed on a Fabriano paper that I'd soaked. I always warm the plate before I print. And there's number 49. This is the test. And this is the proof. And it works.
What's it? Okay, tell us about the parts. I mean, your idea is to make etching inks and litho inks. And you got three rollers there. You got water pipes coming. What's
this machine's used for grinding all kinds of pigments. It's used in paint making, ink making. There's also other ways of grinding pigments, but this is probably the best because it keeps the temperatures at the lowest, keeps the pigment in the oils or whatever the medium is at the lowest temperature. The whole point of making ink or paint or anything like this is to suspend a pigment in a medium that dries. Traditionally we use linseed oils, and in ink making we use linseed oils that have been bodied. You know, the artist material market isn't big enough that anybody's willing to cold press oil for you. Plus I'm not sure that that you could really make a case for it being that much better, you know, for the economics involved. And then they put it in big kettles, big copper kettles or stainless steel kettles, and they body the oil, and they do it one of two ways. They either heat it from the outside, or they burn it, which is where you heat the oil to about 550 degrees and it ignites. And as it burns, it gets heavier and heavier. Like if it burns for maybe 1 hour, it's like maybe a 5/0. Or if it burns for 24, it's like body gum, you know. Then you extinguish the fire, and that's how the oil's bodied.
That's why you start making ink?
Yep, I started making ink because I knew I wasn't going to be making enough money off my prints. And I didn't want to do what I had to do probably to make money off my prints. Plus I'm not convinced I could do what I had to do to make the money anyway. And I work for an offset printer, and though it's a pretty good job and all that kind of stuff, I still don't like it. And so I wanted to work for myself.
I'm Bill Ritchie. I went to visit the Olympus Press on Bainbridge Island, together with Greg Both and Lorna Pauley and our video equipment. We went to see Daniel Smith doing some work on his silkscreen print, which was in progress at that time.
This is how you unload or unpack your mini half-wood press in the international shipping box. First of all, there's a packing board. All that is for packing. So take that out first. Next, get a hold of it on the frame, not on the wheel. The only thing that holds this wheel on is this one set screw, and it puts too much strain on the set screw if you want to use it to lift it out. So don't lift it out, no. Get under the frame like this, You might have to hold the thing with your toes. It's a tight fit. And then lift straight out. If you want to pack your mini Halfwood press back into the international shipping box, first of all, be sure that the bed is centered. And we have these little felt pads to help you do that. You tighten the press just so. It might take you a couple tries to get this bed centered. And when it's centered, cinch it down tight. You have to be sure that the bed isn't sticking out too far one way or the other. Then you get a hold of the press by the frame again, not by the wheel, and you slide it in and put back the shipping board, which is just to keep it from rattling around.
Here's a way to do a dry point self-portrait. First, I bevel the edges of the copper plate with a power grinder and I finish with a file. Then I polish the plate with steel wool and put a mirror finish on it with a metal polish or even a buffing wheel on a power drill. Then I take my digital snapshot, put that on a computer for guideline. I needle in the image with my dry point needle and I make little changes with burnisher. Sometimes I use an electric engraver. Now my plate is ready to ink with a chip of mat board and I roll the ink out with a brayer. Then I wipe the plate with a page from a telephone book and hand wipe it for a final polish. My paper soaked for an hour. I blot off the surface water, tighten the pressure on my press, put the plate on the bed, the paper on the plate, and run it through, and there's my finished dry point. Here's how I make a fine line etching using a liquid hard ground. First I bevel the edge of the copper plate, and then I back it with plastic or a spray paint. I scrub the surface with a cleanser and check it in water to see if water sheets across the surface. Then I blow it dry with a dryer or paper towels and apply the liquid ground with a soft brush. When it's dry, I check it for pinholes. I needle in the design using a sharp etching needle. I immerse it in ferric chloride for 5 or 10 minutes and check it with a magnifier. I remove the ground with a solvent and then I apply the ink with a piece of mat board. Then I wipe with a page from a telephone book and I finish with a hand wipe, and I'm ready to run it through the press and check my proof. Here's how you can do a soft ground etching. You start with a prepared plate with a bevel and a polished surface. I'm using Charbonnel soft black ground in ball form. The ball melts on the plate when you heat it. You roll it out with a soft brayer. When it's cool, you cover it with paper and tape it down and draw. You press hard. You can check your progress. Here's how it looks from the front. Here's the back. It's ready to etch. I stick on plastic buttons because it's going to be etched upside down in ferric chloride for 20 minutes. You can check the depth of the etch with a magnifier. When it's done, dissolve the ground, strip off the backing, apply etching ink, wipe with tarlatan, paper, and finish with a hand wipe. You print on damp paper, and then you pull your proof. Here's how I do a relief print from a woodcut on my mini Halfwood press. I started with a design I printed out on my laser printer. Then I transferred the laser print to a block using lacquer thinner and run it through my mini Halfwood press. And I start to cut. I use a knife and I cut away from the image at an angle. Then I go back and cut a V shape all around the line areas, and finally I clear out all the open areas with a gouge. I dampen my paper with a spray bottle and put it in a plastic bag. I roll out my ink and I start inking my block. I get the press ready by putting down the chase and a blanket. Then I put my damp paper down into the chase and put my wood block on it face down and roll it through the press. And I lift the block, and there's my finished print. Here's a way to put a laser image on a metal plate and etch it in for making printing plates. Here I'm using it to etch a mini Halfwood press medallion. Print on a photo paper and put the design face down on a clean copper or brass plate, and then press it with a hot iron. The image will stick. Soak it in hot water. When it's well saturated, the paper will rub off. Rub it until the glossy substance is removed and only the black remains. Cover the back to protect it. A self-adhesive plastic or tape works. Put it in a ferric chloride mordant on its edge or face down. I needed to etch it for 10 or 20 minutes. I put a rough surface in and I use aquatint and I etch it a second time. Finally, I clean it off with a strong solvent with lots of ventilation because this is hazardous to your health. After it's trimmed and polished, I could print it, but this one goes on my mini Halfwood press. Here's the design on my computer. I print it on Avery label paper. I tear off the labels and throw them away, and I print on the glossy side that's left using my laser printer set on heavy. I cut out the design I want. Now I've got a copper plate that I scrub with steel wool, and then I polish it, clean it with Comet and water. When it's dry, I put the art face down and run it through a laminator. I do that about 6 times to really get it hot. When it's cooled off, I can peel off the backing, and it's ready to touch up if I need to with rosin alcohol. Coat the back with contact paper, tape it face down with a little space under it in my tray, and put in the ferric chloride. It's a good idea to tap away the bubbles. It takes about 15 minutes for the first bite. I rinse it off with water and really clean. Then when it's dry, I like to put on an aquatint. I use an aquatint box. Just get the fine particles. It only takes about 5 or 6 seconds. Aquatint has to be fused on with a hot plate. Get it smoking hot. Cool it off and back into the bath. It's all done. Clean it off with lacquer thinner. Be careful, don't breathe those fumes. When it's all clean, it's ready to take your first trial proof.
It's because when I was designing the Halfwood press, I was thinking about old sailing ships. The cladding is the outside skin, and it's the outside of the etching press that I designed. The edges all around are rounded off and smooth. I try to get into every little crack with the teak oil. Now when all the 4 cladding pieces are polished and buffed, they're ready to assemble onto the steel and the screws put in.